Hello everybody and welcome back. I am KRX and we are continuing on with this beginner's guide to Europa Universalis 4 for complete beginners. We are playing as Brandenburg. We are playing with all of the DLCs. This is up to date for 2021, including the largest patch and DLC ever released for EU4, the Leviathan DLC. We have everything else activated as well. This is for all those crazy people out there that maybe got the subscription service. So they have all the stuff and they're just trying to learn everything all at once. Or maybe you picked up the game and you got some of the key DLCs, the bigger DLCs on sale or something like that when you picked up the game and you're trying to learn the game. And honestly, learning the game with all the DLCs, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of little details and options and things to kind of like wonder and wade through. Right now, I think we're doing pretty well. First episode, we kind of looked at our diplomatic situation. We kind of just got a sense of where we are in the world, how the people around us feel. We kind of have an idea that, hey, we probably want to attack Stettin. We probably want to attack Teutonic Order and take these provinces that are disconnected from the rest of their problems. But the truth is, we don't really know. I mean, Teutonic Order looks kind of big. Like, how scary and how powerful are they going to be to do that? How do we actually get the means to attack? How do we actually do that? How do we prepare ourselves for the war? So on and so forth. So there's a number of things we need to look at, including we haven't looked at our economy. We haven't looked at our trade situation. We haven't looked at our internal faction system, our internal politics system, the estates. There's a number of different things we haven't done. There are a few banners up here in the top left that we looked at in the first episode. We looked at the one that was red, flashing at us that we had too few rivals, so that's good. We got that taken care of. We've selected our rivals. We have Austria as an ally. We know how to use the diplomatic map mode now and flip between that and the political map mode. So we know that Austria is a nice ally there, which is fantastic. We could get more allies. We have one free diplomat, and 5 days from now, we'll have another diplomat come back. We probably, honestly, what the heck? Saxony, we learned that Saxony is an elector, and they actually help determine who will become the next emperor. I don't think we're going to make a big play to become the emperor, but what the heck? If Saxony is our ally, Saxony might want to actually vote for us. And we cannot, it says there's a cooldown, you must wait 1 day until you can send another offer. So we've already offered Austrian Alliance. We have to wait 1 day to send Saxony Alliance. We'll wait till we unpause the game to do that. Although what we could do is we could just send for Royal Marriage. And the Royal Marriage will link up, and with the Royal Marriage we'll lock in the alliance request. They'll probably end up sending us an alliance request once we have the Royal Marriage with them. So yeah, let's get a Royal Marriage with Saxony, and then they'll send us the alliance request. Royal marriages basically just sort of strengthen alliances. It also means that we can't attack each other. It's like a defensive truce, kind of. We can't attack each other while we have a royal marriage with each other. But it really does just do a big boost to opinion, and it'll make them more likely to ally us, which we'll just let them send their diplomat over to us. There'll be a little banner that pops up that says Saxony is looking for an alliance with us. Also, if we have a royal marriage with them, they'll be even more likely to vote for us. In fact, you can see they're only at minus 16 reasons to vote for us. So they're more likely to vote for Austria right now. However, if they ally us, boom, they're going to start voting for us. I'm not trying to become the emperor, I swear. But Saxony will vote for us. So we could look and see, ooh, we got Trier, we got Palatinate, we got Köln, Bohemia, and Mainz. So we have a number of nations here. Bohemia and Austria tend not to like each other, so they might not vote for each other regardless. Bohemia tends to vote for themselves a lot of the time. So we could look at some of these other smaller nations, like Trier is over here. Köln is not too weak. They have a number of provinces at the beginning of the game. The Palatinate, I don't remember them being so weak. Again, we can go to the diplomatic section to see the Palatinate here. They're a little disconnected, but they got four rich provinces in the middle of Germany, in the middle of Europe, I should say. Köln is over here. They have 3 provinces, and not all provinces are created equally. So that's important. But just to see, it's just interesting to know that they are a little disconnected there. Austria will probably ally some of these electors as well to try to secure their grip on power. So it's not like a done deal just because we ally all the electors. Austria will start to ally them as well. Anyway, so our diplomats are tied up right now, but they'll be back in just a few days once we unpause. But we have this other banner here. What I was trying to say is that the banners here will help guide us as to things we need to check out before we unpause. And we already know there's a number of things we do need to check out just from our own inquiries, from our own investigations. We need to figure out what's going on with the Teutonic Order. We need to figure out how we can get a bigger military. and other things, and what our economy looks like and stuff. But just to go along with the with some of these banners up here really quick, we have one that's yellow, so it seems to be a little bit more concerning. It says the Low Crownland. Low Crownland. If we click on this, it'll open up the appropriate tab in our country management screen, which has all those different tabs that we talked about last time. This is the estates. This is the estates. So we're getting all these red penalties here because our Crownland is below 30%. I'll tell you right now, 30% is the magic number. It's saying we're at 29.998, so that's kind of an awkward. That's kind of awkward. The only way we can get more Crownland, aside from random events that can happen, is by seizing land from the estates. And if we seize land from them, their loyalty will go down. We will displease them, and their loyalty will go down by -20 loyalty. And then rebels may rise up if it drops below 30. So 30 is the magic number. We don't want it to dip below 30. They're at 50 right now. So we have room to lower this down to 30, and they won't be upset. We got rid of all those negative effects. Some of those were reducing our taxation. Our ability to tax our own people was reduced because we didn't own, the crown didn't actually own a lot of the land. So people are like, why am I paying taxes to the crown if you don't even own the land, right? We're going to pay our taxes to the nobility, or we're going to pay our taxes to the clergy, or we're going to pay our taxes to the private landowners of the burghers and the merchants that own the land, right? So on and so forth. So we can see here there's sort of a pie chart of who owns what land. Nobility seems to own a lot of land, and that'll attribute to them having a certain amount of influence within the country as well. And there's other means at which they can get influence through events and policies and privileges and stuff that will increase their influence. But essentially what we're looking at is the clergy, the church, the nobility, sort of military and nobility, and then the merchants that are like traders and production and diplomatic interests and things like that. So that's kind of how these different factions break down. They're sort of like, they're just different sort of pieces of sort of the way that we look at. It's sort of just like like slices of our the factions of our country, right? And we can see that they have a certain amount of loyalty, and we saw that they were at 50, and now it's actually saying that their equilibrium loyalty though is 37. With the amount of land that they have and other things that we've done for them and stuff, they're actually about 37% happy. Right now it's at 30, it's a temporary setback, it'll creep back up to 37%, so it gives us a bit of a buffer. Nobility, it looks like they're at 43%, so they're even happier, probably because they have even more land. The burghers are at 35% equilibrium, so right now that'll just be trending up. So right now their loyalties are going up. That's good. They're not going down, right? Because if they drop below 30%, they'll become disloyal, and these modifiers down here, like the burghers giving us trade influence, clergy's giving us extra national tax modifier, nobility's giving us extra manpower. We don't know what any of this means, but presumably if we have better trade efficiency, then presumably that will help us economically. More taxes means we'll probably be making more money. More manpower, we don't really know much about manpower right now, but that's what the nobility is doing for us. The other thing is their influence. So the way this works is they have a loyalty. This is basically a check on, do they like us or do they not like us? Right now, 30 to 60 is basically neutral. If they're in the middle, they're kind of neutral, and it tends to default to a positive benefit. So if they go above 60 though, they start to love us, and we get extra benefits. We'll get extra modifiers. If they go below 30, they'll be displeased with us and upset, and these positive modifiers will turn to negative modifiers. The influence though, the higher their influence, the more impactful their modifiers will be, whether negative or positive. So right now, the clergy has a very small amount of influence, 15%. That's pitiful, and they're only giving us 5% taxation. Although the nobility is at 38%, they're giving us 10% of their benefit, right? So we can clearly see that, hey, if the clergy had more influence in the country, they would give us more national tax modifier. Now, we don't want to give them more land, although we could sell them land and make money for that. But that kind of defeats the point of the fact that we just seized the land, because we need more than 30 crown land. We don't want to go below 30 crown land. Selling them land reduces crown land by 10%. No, thank you. No, thank you. So instead what we can do is we can actually go in and give them privileges. And giving them different privileges and hearings before the court and all these responsibilities and stuff will actually increase their influence throughout the country. The more we can increase their influence, the better the benefits are, as long as we keep them happy at the same time. Problem is, or not problem, but something to consider, is if their influence ever gets to 100%, then they try to take over the country. So that's important to know. So we don't ever want their influence to get to 100%. But at 15%, 38%, 24%, not worried about it. Not worried about it. Usually the way they get to 100% is if you stack a bunch of these privileges, and then events, random events will get them over tip them over the edge. But just a very basic one here is oversight by the clergy. 10% more clergy loyalty, that's a good thing. And 10% more influence. That's a good thing, because we want them to have more influence so they give us more tax benefits. We want them to be happier so they give us additional benefits in addition to national tax modifier. So the happier they are, the more types of benefits they give us, the more influence they have, the stronger those benefits become. Booyah. There is -10 absolutism. That is a factor for way later in the game. So this actually doesn't have much of an impact on us right now. Hundreds of years from now, we'll worry about that. That is way later in the game. Clergy Advisory Council. This will actually make advisors cheaper. We don't know anything about advisors right now, to be honest. We don't know anything about advisors. The Papacy Emissary. We're a good Catholic nation. This will give us yearly papal influence, +1. We don't really know anything about the papacy, but that's 5%, 5%. That could be decent. This is 5%, 10%, so Clerical Advisory Council could be really good. It increases stability cost modifier by 10%. Again, we don't know what some of this stuff means. But this one has no effect, right? These ones literally have no effect. It just gives them more of both those things. Monopoly on wool. We can give them, we can basically give the clergy all the wool, and we'll get some money from that, but we won't get any production income from wool, so I don't know if we want to do that. What is this right here? Church sanctuaries. No modifiers. +3 papal influence is added upon construction of a church. -3 papal influence is added upon destruction of a church. I don't think we're going to be destroying many churches, but we'll certainly be building churches. We'll want churches all over our land. They help increase tax collection, so that's good. So yeah, this is 10% and 10%. I think we'll absolutely want the church sanctuaries. Booyah. So we're just giving them more influence. And this will update 35. We're at 35%. It just needs a data update. That. So we're giving them more and more influence. That's great. Let's look at the nobility. See if we can get them anything. And there's some parallels between them. Like they have the right to counsel, which is kind of like the oversight by the clergy. However, they're going to have other ones that obviously aren't related to like building churches and stuff, but we can see what they have here. Ooh, command of the military, 30% influence. Oh, but it reduces crown land by 10. Gives us yearly army tradition by 1. Increases leader cost by 20% though. Recruiting leaders adds 5 nobility influence. Interesting. So every time we recruit new leaders for our armies, they're always raised from the nobility. They're always of noble blood. This is actually kind of a cool one, but 30% actually starts to make them like too powerful. But the yearly army tradition is actually very, very strong. That is actually a very strong modifier, so that's pretty good. They also have aristocratic counselors, so the military cost advisory reduction will probably want that, to be fair. Increased levies. 37% land ownership gives a little bit of, will reduce the taxation, but we'll expect them to contribute more troops, more men to the army. So national manpower modifier will go up by 10%. But we'll get less taxation because presumably some of those recruited people will not be working in the economies, and it'll hit our economy, pulling them out of the civilian workforce. We could actually just kind of wait on that. I think we're going to want to actually make it so we have cheaper advisors, but we just don't know anything about the advisors yet. We have the burgers here. Again, they should have something similar. Free enterprise. Give them free enterprise. 10 loyalty, 10 influence. Doesn't have any other effects. Control over monetary policy. Production efficiency seems good. Oh, power cost increase. We don't really know what some of this stuff means. There's definitely a trade-off to some of it. Indebted to the burgers, we can take out a bunch of cheap loans. Loans are usually at like 4%. These are 1% loans, so that's kind of nice. Oh, patronage of the arts. We can get yearly prestige. Being prestigious sounds pretty good. We can gain 15 right now at the cost of a 5% national tax modifier. We don't know if we can really afford that. We don't know what our economic situation is looking like. Okay, so we've added some new privileges for the estates. We can come back and add more. This increases their influence. And there we go. We're getting 10% national tax modifier from the clergy because we got them above I think 25%, 20 or 25%, maybe 30% is what gave us to the next thing there. The last thing we could do here is we could actually hit summon Diet. And if we summon a Diet, it'll give us a little mission to work on. That one of the we can basically listen to all of the different estates. They can come. We have a hearing, and they can propose. They can make proposals to us, and we can decide to pursue any of these. And we have to pick one of them. So the clergy wants us to do. Clergy wants us to butter up the Papal States. Well, the Papal States is where the Pope lives. We're a good Catholic nation. That doesn't sound like a bad idea. Yearly papal influence. When we complete this, it'll make the clergy extra happy. It wants us to change culture. Complete when such areas is. They want this province here, instead of it being Pomeranian, they want it to be Saxon. They want it to be Saxon culture. I don't think this is actually a priority, because the truth is the Pomeranians, they're yellow, they're not red. If we click on someone like Moroccan culture would be unaccepted culture for us. It would show up in red. But in this case, Pomerania, like a lot of these cultures in this area should be relatively accepted by us, because it's all kind of part of the German culture group. So I don't know if that's really our priority. Rupin, but it does tell us at least that we can change cultures of provinces. That's kind of interesting. So this wants Rupin here. This is the province of Rupin. It wants it to be at least 4 production development. So it wants us to develop this from 2 to 4. And this is something we can actually spend these diplomatic points on. These diplomatic points are incredibly powerful and incredibly important. And we use these to get technologies and all kinds of things. Do we want to be using them to boost the production in this province? Well, here's the thing. We're learning a little bit more about the provinces here, because the mission here is literally to boost this up to 4, to hit this button a couple times, which would cost us, we don't even have enough diplomatic power to do that yet. We have like 10 or 20 years to complete these missions. But this is a livestock province, and I can tell you this is a lower value. And usually when the goods of the province are higher value, that's when you benefit more from increasing the production development of the province. So let's see if we can find another one as an example. This here is iron. Iron is more valuable. Boosting up Brandenburg would be more lucrative per diplomatic point. This would be more of a long-term investment to develop the production capacities of this iron mine, rather than of the livestock is pretty generic. There's going to be just livestock lying around everywhere. We don't really use these goods. They're just worth different values of money. Cloth is pretty valuable. Yarn, wool, not so valuable, but more valuable than livestock. Livestock is one of the worst. We have a lot of cloth production actually in the country, which is interesting. But we can actually go to a trade goods map mode, and we can see all different kinds of trade goods all over the world. In fact, there's gold over here in Bohemia. Gold mine over there. We have silver, paper, salt. We have dyes, wine, naval supplies, all kind of fish here along the coast, all kinds of stuff. Glass and things, crystal, glassware. So for the most part, I think the clergy one sounds good. I think we're going to want to make the Pope happy. So we'll hit the top option, and then we can always reference that. We can go back here and say the agenda is to make the Pope happy. So we want to go down here and make the Pope happy. So we need to send a diplomat down here to improve relations. That's what it's telling us to do. And that'll take a couple years to get them up to 100. So that's something we'll work on. Our diplomats are occupied at the moment, but we just know we have like 10 to 20 years to do that. Plenty of time, plenty of time. So the estates are taken care of, and that thing is that warning that we had low crown land and we're getting penalties from that is gone. Because we seized the crown land and we worked on the estates a bit. The estates are really kind of like a mini game within the game, and you can get some really great benefits from these guys. And the truth is, it's a very detailed system, and it's a very isolated system. It doesn't really interact too many with a lot of the other core systems of running the nation. Basically, what I'm trying to say is the estates are completely insignificant. We could literally never come back to this tab for the next 10 hours of playing the game, and all would be fine. All would be fine. But if you want to optimize this, you can get benefits by optimizing this. That's kind of the difference, right? It's if you want to optimize this, and I explained all the critical thresholds, like 30%, 60%, 100% for influence, right? There's different critical thresholds that you learn those percentages, and the game doesn't teach you any of that stuff. It's just you know, you just got to know those percentages, unfortunately, or not care about it, right? Again, not the most important thing in the world. Here we go. Now it says the next thing in the list here, left to right, free advisor slots. Hey, we were just learning about advisors and making them cheaper. We were just learning about having cheaper advisors. No advisor, no advisor, no advisor. Okay, let's click on these to get into recruit advisors. Well, we can get this guy. He's a master of mint. He increases our administrative skill by 1. We don't really know anything about this. He costs 1 ducat a month. I don't know if that's expensive or not, but that's his salary. It's going to cost 16 ducats to hire. I mean, we got 53 ducats at the moment. And we can see he's an administrative advisor, or we have diplomatic advisors. We can't even afford these guys. They're level 2. They're level 2, and they cost quite a bit more per month, but also in terms of total ducats. We only have 53 ducats. We just learned what the ducats are. The treasury up here. And then we have the third tab, which is the military. Oh, this guy's a discipline advisor. And they have different advantages and stuff, but they also just increase our military skill. If we go back and we look at our leadership here, we have a 3 administrative skill leader, 3 diplomatic skill, and 2 military skill. Our leader is also incorruptible. It has yearly corruption minus 0.05. Beautiful. That's a good stat. We have an heir here. That's a 221. That's even worse than our leader. So our heir is worse than our leader. And the same, our heir is the same age as our leader. Strong claim to the throne. Our heir, though, is an inspiring leader that gives morale to the armies. We don't really know the specifics of a lot of these different stats. We don't know what corruption is, but it sounds bad, so it's good that we're getting rid of it. We don't really know much about morale, but it makes sense that if your troops have more morale, then they're probably more eager to fight, right? That sounds like a good thing. And it is a very good stat. But we can see here, if we come over here, this is the summary of all of our modifiers. If we had advisors, it would add 1 to each of these. But it's 3, 3, and 2. We can see that the military is a little bit weaker here because there's a base of 3. You always have a base value of 3 plus the leader skill. The leader skill is on a spectrum just out of a random tidbit here from 0 to 6. A leader skill could be anywhere from 0 to 6. This leader is decisively below average. A 333 is average. A 332 is below average. Our heir is a 221. That's not great. That's not great. If we were to click on someone to inspire us, we could click on Aragon, go to their diplomacy screen, see what's going on in their leadership. They have a 246, 6 being the absolute highest military skill that a leader can have. So they're more likely, this leader is likely to be very powerful on the battlefield if set as a general. This leader is going to accumulate more military power quickly, which will lead to military technologies more quickly, so on and so forth. But if we sort of move this through, we can see that's an average of a 444. So they're definitely above average. And there are even better leaders than that if we were really looking around. Oh, I believe that actually Albania has a pretty good leader. A 656. These are historical figures. 656, an amazing leader. You can see this leader actually has a personality trait of administrator. It just tells you how the AI is going to play. How is this leader going to play? They're going to lean more towards administrative. If we click on the Ottomans, militarist. This leader is a militarist, a 646. They're some of the most powerful leaders, or like individual leadership people in the world. Obviously, Albania is not a powerful country, but they have a powerful leader. We, on the other hand, have Frederick II, and we are kind of just average. Our heir is not so good. We actually could get rid of the heir. We could literally hit this button and throw the heir in the river. we could disinherit the heir, or we could send them on a hunting accident or something like that. Now, unfortunately, the disinherit does reduce prestige. Our leader's pretty young, 30 years old, and our electress is not, a 332, better than our heir. So she would take over if the prince died. I think we actually want to get rid of this heir. It's going to cost us a huge amount of prestige. We don't know anything about prestige, but prestige is a metric between negative 100 and plus 100. Right now we're plus 4, but you can see it's going down. It tries to always get to 0. It always tries to get to 0. If it's at minus 50, it tries to go up to 0. It'll actually be increasing to 0. If it's at plus 50, it'll try to decrease down to... So the truth is, yeah, 50 prestige, it'd be bad to lose this prestige. Let's get rid of that guy. Let's lose this. However, we're at minus 45 prestige. This will now trend upwards. This will trend upwards. We're getting 2 prestige per year as it climbs us out of the hole. But we are going to get some negative modifiers for being at negative. It hasn't updated the tooltip yet. We're going to have like reduced army morale and a bunch of other bad things. So being at negative prestige is not good. We are at risk of personal union on monarch death, and not worried about that. We have the queen, and we will probably get a new heir as we have royal marriages and stuff and make babies and things. So that'll be totally fine. The thing is, can we even avoid these advisors? So I right-click that to go away, even though it was red and scaring us. Can we afford these advisors? What's the economy look like? Okay, so we can go to the economy tab. We're making 1.4 ducats a month. Now the way that we want to read this is our total balance. Per month we're going to be accumulating 1.4 ducats. Hey, well, if these guys cost 1 ducat a month, we can hire one of these guys and not be running at a deficit. We want to try to maintain a positive balance here. Now, we could look and see how do we increase the amount of money that we make. Typically, you have the two columns. You have income and expenses. Think about it this way. Income is a long-term goal. It's a long-term goal to increase income. You can increase your income by taking new lands and expanding like your production of those lands. You can develop the land that you already own and make more money and by developing up and enriching the infrastructure in the land you already own. These are long-term projects. It'll be a long time before we can increase our taxation a significant amount, right? We need to go to war, conquer new lands. We need to invest in the lands that we have. This is stuff that slowly goes up over time. Expenses, though, are things that we can look at and tactically shave off expenses. Right now, we're paying 2.5 ducats for our 9,000 troops. We could get rid of some of these troops to save money, or we could just stop paying them. We can literally not pay them their full salary. They won't be ready to fight. However, they will not be capable of fighting in this state, but we could just warm them back up if we're about to go to war. But you can see, we can pay them half cost to let them just lounge around. They won't be battle ready, but we will be able to make more money per month. That's a typical strategy. We're paying 1 ducat in fort maintenance. We have a fort in Berlin. We could actually mothball this fort to pay half cost, just like mothballing the army, basically. So we could mothball this to save half a ducat at the fort. We have state maintenance. We cannot get rid of the state maintenance. That's just kind of the way that it is. At least not easily, and we wouldn't want to. This is totally fine. It's just a little bit of maintenance that we have for the size of our realm. The bigger the realm we have, the more states we have. It's just going to be a little bit of a constant expense to maintain that. And that's actually all of our money. All of our money is maintaining the Berlin castle and paying the troops. That's the entirety of the money. Okay. Well, if we go back over here, let's decide what advice we can hire one advisor. It looks like we can afford one single advisor. Well, if we got a military advisor to round out our lack of military skill. So that could be good. And we saw that this discipline guy, we don't know much about discipline, but the more disciplined our troops, the more damage they do in battle, the less damage they take in battle. And that's represented in just the fact that they're just better fighters. They are just individually better fighters. So yes, we want a higher level of discipline. However, let's be careful here. So we want a military advisor. We want this guy, but we're going to make him cheaper. Let's go to the nobility here, and let's find that aristocratic counselors. Military advisors cost 25% less at the cost of 10 stability modifier. We don't know anything about stability. Let's just grab this. That sounds good. So we're only going to pay this guy 75% of what he wanted. So now we're going to only pay 0.75 per month. And we're only going to pay 12 ducats to hire him. Perfect. We now have one advisor. In fact, by that logic, we can almost hire a second one at the reduced cost. But right now, I think we're just going to let it ride. We're just going to let it ride. So there's a few things we could do with our armies, though, right? We can not pay them and not have them battle ready. But the truth is, we're going to go to war soon, and it's good to have them ready to go. There's something else we can do with the army instead if we're paying for them. Right now, we're just kind of wasting the money because we're at peace. The other thing we can do with the army is we can actually drill them. We can have them training and getting stronger. Now, the way that we can do this, we need a leader. We have no leader attached to this army right now. We have to give them a leader. And our prince is actually relatively weak when it comes to military skills, so he would be a bad leader. Instead, we can come over to the military tab, and we can recruit generals from the army. Recruit a general from the army. It's going to cost us 50 military power. So this is also just like we talked about later, these different sort of administrative power, diplomatic power, military power. These are used for tons and tons and tons of different incredibly important things. One of the main things these are for is for the different technologies. This is our means of getting military technology, but we also have to train generals. So that's a little bit of that has to go to training generals. Right now it's 600 to get a technology, so 50 to get a general is really just a tiny little sliver of the total cost. So let's recruit this guy and see how he does. Okay, he's a 1 fire, 2 shock general. That is not the worst, but he's only got 3 pips. And again, same thing, 0 to 6 is the highest they can be. Now, early in the game, your generals are going to be quite weak because our army tradition is so low. This is a metric between 0 and 100. We're at 9 out of 100. So our army tradition is very, very low, but every country in the game starts with a low army tradition. No one starts with a high army tradition. So all the generals at the beginning of the game will be much weaker unless you have historical generals. France has really powerful historical generals. Really powerful historical generals, whereas Brandenburg just doesn't get that love at the beginning of the game. But we can assign this guy. We can select our 9,000 troops, just box select our 9,000 troops sitting in Berlin, assign this guy, and we can actually, we have all these different things that we could do. Some of these are not contextually relevant. They're grayed out. They're just not relevant to what's going on. Like they're not in the new world. They're not exploring the new world, or they're not, some of these things we haven't unlocked some of the technologies. Like we don't have the technology to do force march. We need administrative technology 15 to do that, so on and so forth. Bunch of different buttons here to give orders and commands and stuff to the army. But the one we're going to do is hit this button, enable drilling. Enable drilling. This is going to train the troops. Here we go. So these troops are going to be training. You can see them doing a little bit of a drill there. And the leader's leading them in drilling. This can actually give the leader special perks. It can prepare them to get special modifiers to become a better leader while they practice drilling. And also these troops will accumulate army drill, and make them fiercer fighters. And also the other thing this is doing is it's increasing our army professionalism. The more we drill, and this will take decades and decades and decades to increase. And now we're at 1% army professionalism. But by drilling our troops, again, over decades, this will go up permanently. And this affects all our troops. The drill that these guys are individually getting just affects them, but the army professionalism that they slowly build up overall affects our entire country and all of our armies. So drilling your troops are pretty good if we can afford it. Some countries can't afford to drill their troops. Prussia has a very, Brandenburg and Prussia has a very proud professional army and a history of having a professional army, so drilling our troops is very thematic, and also it's going to give us a leg up against our neighbors who might not be able to afford to do this. Because the alternative, again, is just not paying for the troops. But if you're drilling them, you have to pay for them. You can't pay them and train them at the same time, or not pay them. So we've got our one advisor. We're making a tiny amount of money. It's not much. We're going to right-click that. In fact, let's see really quick. Let's look at trade, the trade tab. Now, in this tab, there's literally nothing to look at here. This is just a summary of how much we're making from trade, and this is not even up to date. We'll have to wait till December next month for this to update. This is usually a little whacked out at the beginning of the game. In fact, if we come over here and look at trade in the economy tab, it says we're only making 1 ducat. This says we're making 2 ducats. These numbers will match next month. We don't even know if it's 1 ducat or 2 ducats. We don't even know. It'll take a month to update this. This is not up to date. But this is just, I never go to this tab to do anything except for just to look to where I am here, or maybe double check one of these modifiers. These are just a bunch of different trade modifiers that we'll get throughout the game through technologies and different ideas and philosophies and stuff, little bonuses that we can get, or events and things. But right now we are not interested in any of this. This is how much we're making in trade, but how do we, the only thing that we can do to really modify that is to go to the trade map mode. That's how I like to do this, at least. And again, I have this set up so it went to the trade goods map mode just out of curiosity. Hey, what kind of great trade goods are there in Europe? And just looked around. But if we click, if I have this set up so that the trade map mode and the trade goods map mode are kind of on top of each other, you can do this any way you want. You can right click these and set these map modes all you want. So now we've gone, and again, always go back to the political map mode if you get lost. Political map mode if you get lost. Diplomatic map mode, trade map mode. And in the trade map mode, very complicated screen. Let's find Berlin. Where's Berlin? Okay, Berlin is here in the, what mode? In this Saxony node. So we are collecting money in Saxony because this is where our capital is. We earn 1 ducat here in Saxony. What are our trade merchants doing? We have a merchant in Wien or Vienna. I can't remember exactly how the Germans say this. Wien. We have a merchant here that's pushing up towards Saxony. So we're trying to pull. There's 6 ducats here in the Vienna trade node, and we're trying to push these up. We're trying to push this up. If we click on this, we can see how well our merchant's doing. 0.06. That is pathetically nothing, right? So 0.06 ducats are being moved by our merchant up into here. We're only 14%. We have 14% control. So of all the ducats that move through Saxony, we're only getting 14% of it. Again, rather pathetic. Rather pathetic. But 14% is a heck of a lot better than 1%. This merchant is basically doing nothing. This merchant over here is pushing over to Saxony. 0.08 ducats getting pushed to Saxony from the Krakow trade node. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this merchant here to help bolster our trade power in Saxony proper, so that we could try to increase this percentage here to maybe like a 17 or a 16 or 20% or something like that. But if we collect trade with our merchant here, we're already collecting trade passively because that's where our capital is. You always collect trade where your capital is. So we don't need a merchant to collect trade here, but I'm going to put a merchant here because we get a little like 5 or 10% trade power bonus or something like that if the merchant's in here. So we're going to have the merchant pushing from here into Saxony, a merchant here working here, and I think, I could be wrong, but I think we'll make a little bit more than 0.9 ducats here with the merchant working here. And for the most part, the way that we can get more influence over this, we only have 14% because, to be honest, we probably only have about 14% of the land. And there's different provinces that are disproportionately valuable to Saxony. If we look around, we can see icons on some of these provinces. Berlin actually has this special icon right here. Berlin is an emporium, a level 1 inland trade center. So Berlin is a disproportionately important province for controlling this node. But we can see there's other ones here. Prague is level 2. We can see over here we have one here. Erfurt is level 1. And we have Magdeburg. Magdeburg is a rival. They have a level 2 trade center here. So if we can collect all of these trade centers, and actually there might be one there should be one here in Saxony proper as well. So if we can collect these different trade centers, this number will creep its way up much closer to 100%. We might have 50, 60, 70% trade power just collecting these very important provinces. Easier said than done, right? Because Prague is well nested into Bohemia's kingdom. Some of these other ones are on the edge over here. Obviously, we've just allied Saxony, but definitely this one here in Magdeburg is definitely one that we would like to get. We can see that if we click on Magdeburg, we can see it down here. It's a market town. If we open this up, we can see it's a level 2 market town. Inland center of trade, the market town. Local trade power plus 10. So this has significantly more local trade power than just a random province with no modifiers. So that's important to note. So really there's nothing active we need to do here. I'm scooting over a merchant to this area. And other than that, we can see that this is flowing into Saxony. Some of it, to be fair, look at this. Some of it's flowing outwards to Rhineland and to Lubeck. We don't want that. We want the money here. So the way that we can actually get influence over Lubeck is by conquering Lubeck. We can prevent these nations from being able to pull that trade up if we control all of Lubeck, because the way that they are able to pull on this is partly because of a neighboring, they have neighboring power here, and they're able to basically magnetize some of that money up to Lubeck. And we can, by removing these different nations up here and by unifying this land for ourselves, that will actually weaken, and that pull of money will actually disappear. Right now it's only 0.5 ducats, not a big deal. I promise this will go up. These very powerful trade nations up here will exhibit a pretty strong pull on this inland money, and they will be sucking that up over time. So it is going to be a tug of war a little bit there, but it's not an active tug of war. It's important to note that trade is mostly a passive process. It's mostly a passive process. As long as your merchants are doing something logical, as long as your merchants are trying to get the money into your home node, and maybe you have one merchant working in your home node, then that's all you can really ask for. So if we had another merchant, maybe we'd want to put it in Wien. If we had another merchant beyond that, we'd maybe put it in pest. So we're trying to create a big merchant chain to funnel all that money, snowball all that money back to where you want to collect it. And we have that set up. We've looked at our economy, we've looked at the estates, we've looked at our leadership, we've taken care of most of these. Oh, we have a truce with somebody. We have a truce with Hungary. That's completely irrelevant. We're not going to be attacking Hungary anytime soon. No worries about that. Right click that. These are green. You can tell they're way less important. Disputed successions. These are a bunch of countries that don't have legal heirs, and if we were to royal marry them, we might be able to personal union them and bring them into and take control of their countries through royal marriage shenanigans. So some of these countries we might actually want to target for royal marriages. Even Bohemia is on this list, which is interesting. Very interesting. Anshalt, Ansbach, we talked about that a little bit. We saw that there was an event for us actually to take control of Ansbach. So that's an interesting idea. We could try to royal marry them. They would accept a royal marriage. That gives us a chance that when they pop out when this person dies, we might take over. Our royal marriage couple might supersede the throne in a succession situation. So you never know. But guys, thanks everybody for being here. A rather productive episode, but we still haven't unpaused the game. Next episode, we will unpause the game. We've looked at our economy. We haven't talked about production, though. And we haven't talked about how to scout out enemies and figure out what's going on with our enemies in the Teutonic Order. And we need to start thinking about how do we now prepare for war. We understand how to figure out what our economic situation is and our internal politics through the estates and our internal sort of governance through the leadership and so on and so forth. Next up, production and the road to war. Thanks everybody for being here. If you guys have questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section. I will respond to all of the comments down there, and especially the questions. There's a playlist link down below, guys, so you follow that playlist link. That'll get you to episode 3 nice and smooth and easy in case YouTube's not recommending the next episode automatically. Subscribing also helps so that you can find the episodes more easily through the subscription feed on YouTube. But thanks everybody for being here. I really appreciate you guys, and I will see you guys in the next episode.